Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Morning Shot.
All right, welcome to part 2 of our special budget edition of Morning Shot. From vouchers for every adult Singaporean to personal income tax rebates as part of an SG60 package, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong delivered bumper SG60 Budget aimed at setting out clear plans for Singapore to continue this journey with confidence.
So let's continue the conversation with Professor Lawrence Loh, Director of the Center for Governance and Sustainability at NUS Business School, Dr. Gillian, Senior Research Fellow at Institute of Policy Studies, and Patrick Tay, Assistant Secretary General of NTUC and Member of Parliament for Pioneer SMC. Thank you to the panel for sticking around, and we're going to dive into part 2 with Gillian regarding what parents can look forward to. We saw the introduction of a new large family scheme. Essentially, Singaporean parents will get up to $16,000 more in financial support for each third and subsequent child born from the 18th of February. So what do you think the government is trying to signal here? And is it enough to help alleviate concerns that young families face, you think?
Well, first, it is a substantial amount of money, and we've got to understand this, that what regularly shows up in the government's marriage and parenthood surveys is that when people are asked if they would like to have children, and they say yes, then they're asked how many children ideally would they like. They would say 3. Now, clearly, our overall actual achieved fertility rates suggest that people who do want 3 aren't having 3 because they say it boils down to costs. So this is where the delta really makes a difference. Giving the Child Development Account First Step grant to large families, to call the support for Medisave grant, a large family grant for, third and subsequent children, the large family life SG credits, first calling these support measures, those associated with large families, is really trying to achieve that delta, right, from 1 child or 2 children. For the people who already have children, they want to have 3 as their ideal. So this is going to help, and it responds to what people are saying. Finally, I would say that you must add to this the other support measures. First, access to homes. Second, really huge measures to reduce the cost of education. If you can take note that the Prime Minister announced that the full-day childcare fee caps will be lowered, right? So this is going to help in addition to the outright transfers to Medisave and the CDA account, right? So, overall, it's a holistic approach to helping families achieve their goal of wanting to hit the ideal number of children that they want. Will this nudge people who don't want to get married, who don't want children to have children? I doubt that. But it's people who are already there, married, have children, they can achieve their ideal number with this added support, which is sort of comprehensive, I would say.
Yeah, indeed. Much needed support for families. Patrick, let's come to you. We want to zoom in on the government's move to double the amount of regular USAVE rebates as well as increase the rates for ComCare assistance. Is that a signal that there are more households in need of such help? And secondly, in which bracket of the population does this benefit?
Yeah, I think this is these 2 areas, the USAVE rebates and ComCare assistance rates. It's a clear signal that the government is taking on the feedback from the ground. I think we have, for example, the measures that are helping to alleviate the rising cost of living. I think these are added measures. Why do I say that? I think in terms of USAVE rebates, it applies to generally everyone who's living in a HDB flat. So I think the broad middle, particularly the sandwich class, I think there's a lot of feedback that the cost of living don't just impact the low income households, but also the sandwich class and and those in the broad middle. So I think with this added use-safe rebates, will help in more ways than one to alleviate some of this rising cost of living, particularly as utility prices have gone up and in the past couple of years. And I think this will help to mitigate some of the rising costs. On the ComCare assistance rates, I think that's something also in the path of alleviating the rising cost of living, because daily essentials are getting more expensive as well. And this will go in a long way to help some of the low-income households who are on ComCare assistance. I think I've also met residents who are receiving ComCare assistance, and they say, whether the rates will be revised so that we can, be able to pay for daily essentials and to be able, to sustain some of the rising costs of simple items that you get around the neighborhood and community.
Yeah, so Singaporeans are certainly feeling the pinch of these new cost realities. And with the cost pressures and the inflationary pressures that we're seeing, Lawrence, are these measures that we've been talking about sufficient, you think, to tackle the higher cost of living, especially for the sandwich generation?
Yes, Audrey. I think, first of all, nothing is ever enough, and I think definitely everybody might say budget not enough. We already actually have the vouchers, the rebates, the subsidy, and I think for the sandwich generation, I think what this budget has given is both the butter and the kaya. Kaya means coconut jam. I think butter is given for the global adaptation. I think we need to align ourselves with the vagaries and fluctuations in the world. But very importantly, we also injected the local kaya, which is local adaptation in terms of some of the pressing needs day by day. So I think for the sandwich generation, we probably not only have it butter, but we have it kaya as well.
All right, very well put, Lawrence. Gillian, coming back to you now, similar to what we saw in SG50, we're also seeing a bunch of goodies given out this time in line with SG60. How would you assess the government's balance of cash payouts versus its longer-term policy changes?
Well, I think that takes us back to the point that, yes, you have to deal with sort of what people are feeling acutely on the ground in terms of inflation. But also we mentioned that there are a lot of measures for businesses to raise productivity, to move into new ways of doing business transformation, adopting AI with the Enterprise Compute Initiative. But we also said that there's a lot of money going into infrastructural development, which again supports many forms of industry, from construction to technology to energy. There's also support for new ways to do energy, and that is still sort of at the research stage with the top-up to the Future Energy Fund looking into nuclear. So there's so much there to sustain a focus on the future in terms of industry, the future in terms of energy, construction, dealing with climate change. And finally, there's also a government private credit growth fund in order to have startups and leading companies sort of list on SGX. So in the realm of finance as well, there is support. So I hope I'm effective in sort of giving you the span of the acute measures, the medium and long-term measures that are put in place. Now, finally, if I can end with this, that the point that the PM made is that with economic growth, it definitely, most certainly has translated to higher wages. So in 2024, there was a 4.4 growth in GDP, and this translated to real wage growth of 3.4%. And yet, on top of that, it's not fed inflation. Inflation is the outlook going forward is that it will range from about 1.5 to 2.5, which is actually historically about just about right. It is not all too high. So probably what we should say is, for now, in terms of the outlook, cost of living going to be stable at a certain historical rate. But of course, all bets are off because we are now facing a new round of tariff wars, and that might change the outlook. So, I would just say that we have to be very clear and keep focused on what the numbers are telling us. But finally, growth does translate to higher wages, and higher wages will really mean a sustainable way to uplift households and Singaporeans.
All right. Thank you, Gillian. Very comprehensive indeed. And our next question is actually for all three of you. So even though the budget seems to be quite comprehensive, what's one area that was not covered that you hope the government can look into in the coming months ahead? I'm going to look to Patrick for you to start us off.
I wouldn't say there are gaps or things that are not covered, but more the details. I think people are looking forward to the details of some of the schemes that have been rolled out. I thought it'd be interesting to get more details on the scheme. So I'm actually looking forward to the Committee of Supply debates by the various ministries in the coming 2 weeks, because then we'll get more information and details. For example, the training allowance for undertaking part-time courses. I think there will be a slew of programs and causes that will attract some of these assistants, i.e. the higher cost fee funding as well as the training allowance. I think people want to find out, or fellow Singaporeans want to find out what these programs are, so that they can help in their career choices, their decisions in career conversion, as well as embarking on various training upgrading programs. So I think the details is something, everyone's looking forward to.
Yeah, the devil is in the details. What about you, Lawrence? If there's one area you feel that the budget is missing, what would it be?
Yes. I think, Audrey, beyond the specific measures, I think we covered the ground quite well, even no stones unturned. But I'm going to say that, sometimes I feel, every year we have versions, and now every 10 years we have SG50, SG60, we refresh it every decade. So I think going forward, not only in the next few months, but even longer term, I think we don't need a SG50, we don't need SG60, we need a SG infinity approach. In other words, focus less on transfer, focus less on grant, subsidy, but treating Singaporeans as a stakeholder or even shareholder. So in other words, the budget can take on a very different philosophy altogether, giving citizens dividends based on economic performance, dividends based on economic outlook, or even sustainability situation and status. So moving from a transfer to a dividend approach may be something we want to look at, so that people don't always have this expectation that this year what is in the goodie bag.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to SG Infinity and beyond. And Gillian, same question to you. Any thoughts on what's missing?
Actually, the first point that comes to mind is really what the PM said about, insurance to cover long-term care assistance. He said that the health minister will discuss this, and there's need to look into that. So while there are many measures to help with, immediate healthcare needs, what can we do more to supplement what we already have under Care Shield Life? I think that will help as we are an aging population. So that's quite important. Leads me to one more point, if I may, which is that in the overall approach, you'll see that the government puts in something when people themselves put in something, and then there's also a search for an approach to a third way in addition to that. So, of course, the government subsidizes healthcare and long-term care, for instance, creates the infrastructure, but we also draw on our CPF funds to help with that. But we want to multiply that and look at insurance and what are market-based schemes to expand that. So there's a sense of how we sustain ourselves together. The state does something, the people do something, the market is also given the opportunity to offer its market-based solutions. And I think, that's a very important point to kind of re-emphasize in order to keep our finances sustainable. This is the same with the SG vouchers and CDC vouchers, you realize that. Because the government's giving you money to help you with cost of living, but these vouchers can only be spent in the heartlands and supermarkets. It's not money that you take to Japan and spend the money in Japan on a holiday, if you see what I mean. So this is a way in which you are getting help, but it sustains local businesses and hawkers. So it's always what is the multiplier effect for the local ecosystem that we can create. And I think there's more of that narrative that I think we can re-emphasize in a budget statement for the long term rather than just the dollars and cents.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And I think as generous as this budget has been, the good news is that the government has managed to deliver it without going into the red. They're still expecting a fiscal surplus of $7 billion. So I suppose the argument that more could have been done certainly holds sway. Now let's move or shift our attention from what could have been done to what will be done. And that is the GE that's coming up this year. Gillian, staying with you, if we cast our minds back to 2015 when SG60 coincided with the GE, we saw the PAP win in a landslide with almost 70% of the votes. Judging by what you've been seeing so far, how similar or different would you say SG60 is compared with SG50? And what will the voters be looking out for in the coming months with respect to what the ruling and opposition parties have to offer?
Well, first, as Lawrence had mentioned, this is SG60 package, certainly with the transfers, do remind us of the SG50 Jubilee budget with the transfers as well. But as also mentioned, SG50 budget, pulled together and also expanded on the refreshing of various social support schemes and systems. I mean, in 2012, the government went into a cycle of public consultation called Our Singapore Conversation and got the sense that people felt insecure about aging, about employability. And so this is where you had the CPF Life reform, you had Medisave Life reform, you had the Skills Future, introduction of Skills Future. So actually, over the long sweep, in the same way, right, SG60 budget is the second installment to the Forward Singapore plan, which is built on a public consultation process about how the government, taking heed of people's concerns, should refresh the social support system. So this is where we've got the focus on aging and aging in place, age well. We've also Healthier SG and also Cashew Life as a process of this reform. We've also got the marriage and parenthood packages, right? The mention of more flats being built, making them more affordable, right up to support for having the children, and education, making preschool education at the same cost as what we now have in the national system of primary schools and secondary schools, highly affordable. So I would say that it isn't just the outright handouts, but a process of reform of the social support, which is being funded and certainly funded in this SG60 budget. My final point is this: when we did the surveys, the political opinion survey before GE 2015, the tide of opinion about Singapore government being able to solve problems was already turning upwards at that point on the back of a response to public consultation process called Our Singapore Conversation. So we haven't done one now, but I bet that this is in the same way people are going to feel that the government has heard. After the 2020 GE, we had a poll, cost of living concerns were the shift, caused the shift in opinion. The job insecurity issue caused a shift in opinion between GE 15 and GE 20. So now this, I think, if read correctly, is support to deal with not just cost of living, but also job insecurity concerns, and should try to address what people are worried about if they actually tune in and begin to feel the effects after the budget measures are introduced.
Yeah, so many measures and developments to cover this budget. We really appreciate the breakdown, Gillian. And Patrick, we're going to have you wrap up our discussion, of course, with the GE coming up by November. What are your key priorities as you work the ground in the constituency under your care? What's on the hearts and minds of Singaporeans?
I think, having represented the Pioneer SMC the past 4.5 years, I think the key thing is to be able to look after the interests and welfare of our residents. I think 5 years ago when I, took over or was elected into Pioneer SMC, I think my motto or credo was to better care, connect and create in Pioneer, caring for residents, not just the needy residents, but in the various areas of healthcare and their various needs. And secondly, better connect them to build a kampong spirit and uplift community. And thirdly, creating a clean, green, vibrant estate. I think this is going to be consistent, and efforts have been rolled out. And I think more importantly, to be able to, make the lives and livelihoods of our residents and people living there better. I think this is going to be key, and therefore we continue in our efforts. I think it's not just because it's GE year, but we have been consistently doing that, and I think that will be the key to how residents and even voters see us.
All right, from tackling the rising cost of living to offering support for families and preparing for the future, Budget 2025 sets the stage for Singapore's next chapter as we celebrate SG60. Our guests have provided valuable insights into the key measures, challenges, and what lies ahead. Thank you once again to the panel for your time and insights today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Professor Lawrence Loh, Director, Center for Governance and Sustainability at NUS Business School, Dr. Gillian Koh, Senior Research Fellow, Institute of Policy Studies, and Patrick Tay, Assistant Secretary General, NTUC, and Member of Parliament for Pioneer SMC, a bumper SG60 budget for all Singaporeans. Stay with Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.